Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June 20th Economic Growth and Development Committee meeting. We have a full agenda today. We're going to start with employment and training, EDC, and then to the planning department. By calling this meeting to order, I'd also like to request the approval of the minutes from last month's meeting. Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Frazier on a second. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Let's move on. So, Liza.
Good morning, everyone. I think they have some slides we're going to show.
Liza, could you do me a favor and just tap your mic, make sure it's working? Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So we had the pleasure, of course, of attending the EDC event on Friday, hearing about our workforce shortage, and what was somber news for most in the room was positive for me. And it was positive for me because it affirmed everything I'm working on. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. I have no resolution requests for you today. I'm here to just dive in a little bit deeper. Last month I shared some of this with you, but since we were running late, I ran out of time and was kind of rushing through it. So I want to take a little bit more time today, if that's okay, to go over some of our workforce data. So you can see on the screen, I'm not sure if you can expand it any larger. Play from the beginning at the top left. There you go. These are our unemployment rates from 1990 through now. The gray areas, which aren't showing up on the big screen, but you can see them on the TVs. The gray areas are where the recessions were throughout history. So around 1990, 2001, 2009, and of course, 2020 at the start of the pandemic. So our current unemployment rate is 3%. We still have a very low unemployment rate. And everybody wonders why that is when we have so many jobs. And we learned more on Friday as well about why that is. So at the start of the pandemic, we were at 19% unemployment, of course, which is record high. But we quickly went back down over the next few months because our county did better than so many other counties with leveraging our private and public partnerships and making sure that we had safe tourism for businesses and our tourists. So we had the fastest reemployment rate in the capital region. Within that year, we had a 14% jump. So in other words, we put about 5,000 people back to work between April 2020 and April 2021. Next slide, please. So there continues to be a false narrative that people don't want to work. So your help in getting that word out that that's false. This data shows you that that is false. We actually have more people working now than in 2019. For Warren County, yeah, it's only 100 more. We don't have the May numbers yet. Those come out the end of June, but you look at the April numbers, and in the previous years, our employment numbers always go up for the spring and summer seasons. And then in the Glens Falls metro statistical area, it was actually 1,100 more people working now than in 2019. We know people cross county lines for employment and for living. And so I want you to know that we have more people working. It's just that we have more jobs. So the demand went up for goods and services, which Dr. Cedarberg on Friday at the EDC luncheon also was sharing that the demand went up. So jobs were created, which is awesome, but we don't have enough workers for those jobs. And we know we never had enough workers for those jobs, even pre-pandemic, because our community relied on J1 workers heavily, right? And we still do. So why do we not have enough workers? I mentioned the high demand for goods and services. Perspectives also shifted during COVID. There are people who were working who maybe didn't have to work to afford to live, right? Some of the wealthy even got wealthier. In the American way of life, we're all hard workers. Many people were working who didn't have to work. Perspective shifted about what kind of work, right? Public facing work or not. and flexibility in work in terms of how many hours or the way that people want to work. I've shared with many of you before that remote work and hybrid work is here to stay. Dr. Cedarberg also shared on Friday that remote jobs have increased by 262%. And that is not just because employers had to shift to get workers. It's also because workers wanted flexible and remote work. So that large percentage increase is because of both job seeker demand as well as employer demands for remote workers. The disengaged. I have always said since I started this job almost 3 years ago now, it feels like 10 years ago, that disengaged youth become disengaged adults. As a former educator, it is always going to be a passion of mine to get young people into the workforce. It is constructive use of time. It is building their job readiness skills as well as their character and their soft skills or professional skills like problem solving and communication. We learned again on Friday that there's a record low number of 16 to 19-year-olds engaged in the workforce right now. And there are many reasons for that. I will share that I do believe that youth playing competitive sports year round is one, for the wealthier families who can afford it, is one of the reasons we have fewer teenagers in the workforce now compared to 10, 20, 30 years ago. There are children and families who are encouraged to play sports year round. They're trying to get college scholarships. They're trying to make it pro, even though 1% of them, less than 1% do. And those children need to be getting job experience. We will really see some of the skills that they lack if they're not also getting jobs. And I'm a sports fan, so you got to find balance with both sports and jobs. The other reason jobs are important for young people is because constructive use of time is the best method to reduce risky behavior. And we know the young people have been most impacted by the pandemic in terms of what they lost socially, academically, developmentally. And we know that we will continue to see risky behaviors, children who were in abusive households or exposed to substances. We will continue to see risky behaviors if we do not invest in them and make sure that they are involved in constructive use of time activities such as work. Other people who are disengaged, people with disabilities. New York State, still only about 30% of people with disabilities are in the workforce. We have to do a better job working with our local partners, determining how somebody can not lose all of their benefits, but can still support our workforce even part-time, which Warren County has more part-time jobs than the state average across other counties. So there is a way that many people can get into the workforce and help our local industries, particularly around hospitality and tourism, that are part-time jobs. Active but retired seniors. My stepdad is retired here from construction, and he just said he wanted a job. So he is now working at one of our biggest tourism businesses here and taking on more hours. And we need more seniors, active but retired seniors, to do so. It is good for their mental and physical wellness. It is good for their social life. And it helps our local businesses and community. I did not twist my stepdad's arm to get into the workforce again. He wanted to, but I encourage more active but retired seniors to do so. Justice impacted people or people with criminal records also face about 27,000 barriers to employment or training in order to get credentials. And my staff just had a wonderful training about that, because we know during COVID, we've had more people in the justice system around domestic violence, substance abuse, et cetera. Most people with criminal records that are in there have had run-ins with the law for non-violent offenses. So very often we worry about, helping people or hiring somebody with a criminal record, but the data shows that they're actually more likely to stay loyal to a job or an employer if given a second chance. There's plenty of studies that also show that people with criminal records also move up in the chain of command if given the opportunity because they outperform others. They also miss fewer days of work. So I am with local partners going to continue to teach our and have events with our business community and our chambers to make sure that businesses know not only the benefits of hiring people with a criminal record, particularly in manufacturing. I'm not talking about finance or people or jobs that interact with children, but particularly in manufacturing and many of other jobs here where the background checks are not as strict. And then, you know, we have people who continue to face barriers to employment because of mental health issues. And I again want to thank the ARPA committee for committing $1 million to mental health services in our community. My question is, what would we do without those dollars, and what are we going to do beyond 2026 to support the mental health of our community? Next slide, please. So I shared this a little bit last month, but I didn't get to go into too many details because we were running behind schedule. But currently, I'm the Department of Employment and Training, but I really strongly believe with this committee's support and with the full board of supervisors that we need to evolve into the Department of Workforce Development. Many people think we're the unemployment office. We are not. They hear employment and training. They're like, do you do employment and training for the county or you do it for the community? And it's hard to explain, but when people hear workforce development, they know what that means. This is the term that is being used nationwide. So I'm not asking for a resolution today, but I'm asking for the committee to strongly consider this for the future of my department and the work we have to do for our community around workforce development. The left column, the WIOA funded Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act that is currently funding my department 100%, is all of those requirements in the left column are what the grant requires of us to do. The work in the middle and on the right columns, it's definitely work that we're doing, but it's not work that is funded. It is not work that we report to the state or the feds. And this is why the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act is outdated. It's up for reauthorization this year. And we will see, right? But my job and the jobs of my employees are dependent on this federal grant. And it's up for reauthorization every 3 years. So the president or Congress could decide to change this. They could decide to put an emphasis on colleges, which we are hearing from the current president, that is something that he's very interested in. We don't need that emphasis here. Yes, we work very closely with SUNY Adirondack, but most of our jobs here in our community do not require a college degree. So I just want you to know that our current workforce system is completely dependent on a federal grant and a tri-county system. Saratoga County is our fiscal agent, and our workforce system includes Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties. What we would like to see, of course, is continued emphasis and funding and support on community and economic development programs, right? Training and support for businesses. I am so grateful to the ARPA committee for providing funding to my department to continue to offer training for not only individuals, but for businesses. That saves businesses money, right? And helps them be better employers and reduce safety and conflict risks. So, but the reason I went to the ARPA committee with several funding requests is because I'm limited by my federal grant. And again, I'm so grateful that we have the ARPA money so that we can pilot some programs and see what works. But again, we need to be thinking long-term. What are we doing beyond 2026? And how are we going to fund it? I definitely need more staff as well. And I'm grateful to have ARPA money to, we're hiring a job coach for the summer. And then we're also going to be hiring somebody to work with the school systems and BOCES. We need our young people in our schools to have more career exploration, not just job fairs, but every grade level, middle school through high school, getting programs and services around career exploration. What we heard from many Lake George High School students is that they were not aware of all these opportunities here. It is our job to make sure that our young people in our community are aware of the opportunities here and are connected with businesses as much as possible. In the last column around county government, I continue to be a resource that many of my colleagues reach out to for advice, data, direct connection to Department of Labor. And I want to continue to do that to make sure that county workforce remains competitive, which you heard from many of the union workers last week, that we continue to build partnerships between departments, as I have many working partnerships with DSS, probation, sheriff's office, corrections. We have to continue to do more of that. And then problem solving for workforce challenges. We can promote jobs all day long. We do excellent reach out and flyers to promote county jobs, but we also have to continue to think about how are we retaining workers? And these are things that I would love to be a part of. Next slide, please. So this is my current org chart, which I shared with you before as well. We are adding a part-time office specialist, which I'm funding from my current federal budget to help our front desk state employees with everybody who enters our office and our resource room for services. We're adding the temporary job coach for every summer if approved. And then we know that we need more staff to support our young people and our disengaged populations, all of those that I shared earlier. We have around 30,000 workers in our community, and we only have 3 employment counselors. So we need to do more. We need to invest more. My department does a lot for the county, and we just really want to make sure that the county also is supporting the department, not only in approvals, but in funding as well, long-term. So I wanted to share that with you. Next slide. And then this is how our current funding is set up. So this is not meeting our needs, which again is why you saw me ask the ARPA committee for several requests for funding to cover different programs. We are able to transfer funds once a year from dislocated workers to adults because every dislocated worker is an adult, but not every adult is a dislocated worker, if that makes sense. But I shared with you last month that the 33 workforce board directors across the state requested to New York State Department of Labor to have flexibility around our youth funds because the way it's in law right now, 75% of our youth funds must be spent on out of school youth. The state denied that request last month, but only in the last 2 weeks, they did change their mind and submit a request to the feds. US Department of Labor to allow New York State, because 26 other states also do this, to have flexibility around youth funds. If that goes through, that'll be really helpful because as I just shared, we have many students in school who need career exploration services. So we're optimistic about that, but still you see the limited funding to cover these different program requirements of the WIOA law. Next slide. 76% of our budget, and sorry for the when the slides that they didn't reformat accurately through PowerPoint, but 76% of our federal budget goes to salaries and fringe. Imagine how much more we could be offering to our community residents for programs and services if 190,000 didn't go towards salaries and fringe. 20% of our fringe, or about 20,000 of our fringe goes towards retirees, 7 of which didn't work under this grant. So I would like the committee to think about, is that fair that our federal budget is paying for other county employees' retirement who did not work under this particular grant? And then the salaries. So in the retirement of my own employees, yes, but our own salary raises come out of our own budget. So again, this is money not going to our community residents, and this is something that I would like for the committee and the Board of Supervisors to think about. Training dollars, essentially whatever I have left after doing this budget is what we have for training. So this year it was about $50,000. The previous year it was about $35,000. That with that money, we are putting people through CDL classes, LPNs, CNAs, KSACs, and other counselors for substance abuse, critical jobs in our community. And we want to be able to support more. At the same time, that federal money limits who's eligible because you have to be underemployed or unemployed. We want to be able to upskill more Warren County residents so that they can get a promotion, so that they can stay at their employer. And our current funding system does not allow for that, which is why the ARPA money will allow us some flexibility to provide more training services to people who wouldn't qualify for this WIOA training dollars, and to support our business community. You saw in the previous slide, I don't have any funding for businesses. I do all of my business work because it's necessary, but I don't have to report any of that back to the state or the feds. So therefore, you know, the system, the workforce system is outdated, and they need to catch up to the needs of our current economy. I think these are the main things I wanted the committee to be aware of, especially as we go into budget season this fall. And thinking beyond ARPA. So I was asked by a few folks last week with the ARPA committee, how am I going to fund a position beyond ARPA, the position that will help the schools? And that's a great question and a great point. But my salary and my staff also are dependent on a grant every 3 years. And so we need to figure out a system that works better, not only for this department and the work we have to do for the community, but for the community who is expecting and deserves excellent workforce development programs and services. And I'll take any questions or comments. That's all I have for today.
Thank you, Liza. Any questions from the committee? Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I have so many. But first and foremost, with your permission, Mr. Chair, can I address a question to the budget officer?
Of course.
What would be the process for developing a plan to maybe accept ARPA funds for some of this programming, but then over time budget to support what we're supporting with ARPA, or what we may support with ARPA in order to beef up this department? How would we go about that?
Well, I think it's already been done. I've seen.
So you have a proposal from her for a multi-year plan to beef up? Excellent, great. Thank you. Cool.
Supervisor,
I have
I'm
a
sorry.
few. Do
you
you
have a
mind?
few?
I have a few.
Go ahead. Go right
One
ahead.
of the things, the town of Johnsburg always endeavors to hire as many youth as we possibly can in the summer, but one of the things that I'm hearing from our kids is that they do not feel ready to accept the responsibility of some of even the simplest jobs that we're offering them. Are you hearing that? And is there anything in the works to kind of get at that?
Yeah, so all of our youth, and thank you for that question, Supervisor Hogan. All of our youth in our summer youth employment program go through an orientation and training, not only with our department, but with their work site. However, the bigger issue, of course, is making sure that those young people feel ready by having career exploration in their schools. And we know the school staff and the guidance counselors are completely overwhelmed, which is why I really want to add a position to do this work. So the goal and the vision is that once that program is in place, they will be having career exploration from, let's say, 8th grade. The goal is from middle school, to where they feel more comfortable when they get to high school to take a job, right? But they can start working at age 14, and we want them to feel ready to do that. We see young people, and I hear from businesses and previous work sites all the time, come out of their shells through this summer youth employment program. So while they may be scared at first, they completely develop a lot of social skills and technical skills after the summer program. But like anything, yes, it's scary and new at first for young people.
2 more with your permission.
Of course. Thank you.
And then I promise I won't ask any more.
Well, whatever.
I think what I heard from you was that some of the wonderful opportunities for recreation that we have here in Warren County may actually be an impediment to our active seniors And are we working on finding ways, maybe in conjunction with some of our hospitality partners, to get our seniors to understand that they can recreate and work and it can all be done? Is there anything afoot for that?
Yeah, we have to find that happy balance. We know that there will be, we won't reach all of them, but just reaching many of them and getting as many off the sidelines as we can to have a diverse resume of experiences is the goal. But I think once that program gets started, that's one of the first issues that we'll want to tackle.
And finally, I heard 3 opportunities for advocacy within your presentation. Would it be possible for you to distill those out for this committee and present them to us? Maybe not today, but maybe the next one, as here's who you can talk to, maybe send a letter to advocate.
Absolutely.
Is it possible to put this up on the county website,
Sure.
the presentation?
I didn't cite all my sources, so why don't I do that first and then we could post it.
Thank you.
But most of this comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well as New York State Department of Labor.
Thank you for your question, Supervisor Hogan. Supervisor Leggett, and I'm sorry, there was a hand.
Thank you. And to follow up with Supervisor Hogan here, what can we do to advocate for the county at the county level, NISAC and NACO levels when it comes into federal and state funding? So please put that before us here. Department of Workforce Development, other counties call it that, don't they? So this is pretty common. Okay.
Yes.
And then youth, Chester had no applicants for youth. We have put in to take some on. And so there must be some barriers there. One of them is the family income level. I hear that there are youth that are willing to work, and in rural areas, we do not have a lot of summer job opportunities for youth, but it's that family level. Can you explain that at all? In any?
Yeah. So sometimes we'll get applications, but the youth won't be eligible, right? Their family may make too much money. Because this summer youth employment program is completely funded by TANF through OTDA. However, there is a job matching kind of and location matching process that our youth counselor and our coordinator go through to also try to make sure that where youth are applying from in their neighborhoods, that there are work sites for them or municipalities that they're working for. We do have more work sites and more youth this year, double than last year. Same with work sites. It's just year to year, you kind of never know what to expect, just like we didn't know we would have 18 youth this year with IEPs, individualized education plans. So it's just kind of an off year for Chestertown, but for other communities, for Glens Falls, this is the first time they're having workers at all supporting their recreation program. So it usually varies by municipality each summer.
You're welcome. Hi, Pat. Brad, you're next.
Thank you. Liza, you use, and I've heard you use these terms quite frequently in different presentations you've done, the term workforce exploration, career exploration. And I'd like to know like the definitions of those, your definition, and how those relate to how they're similar or different to internships.
Great question. So internships, well, I primarily use career exploration. I don't use workforce exploration. The term workforce I typically use for our existing workforce. But career exploration with our young people, they will be going through processes where they're learning about, they're doing skills assessments for themselves and interests and seeing what, some are introverted, some are extroverted, some like jobs that are inside versus outside. We have a whole assessment process that we use with young people and not just young people, but anybody doing career exploration to figure out where their skills and talents and interests are. And which careers are suitable for those innate skills that they already have. And then build upon that based on the local job market, right? What are our in-demand industries? What are the options for healthcare, manufacturing, et cetera, which are in tourism, which are some of our biggest industries here. It will vary by age based on what career exploration looks like. But again, this is going to be a new program that we're starting with ARPA money if all goes as planned. So the work that we're already doing with youth is just our summer youth employment program. There are some youth who have a year-round work experience program. And again, those are youth who have to meet a criteria in terms of low income or at risk. So, and then what was the second part of your
Well,
question?
I was wondering how that, identifying what those, skills are, how that relates to businesses that either desire to have interns
Yes.
or, when does that cross over to that?
Yeah, some of the school districts already have internship programs, and I want to be able to partner more with them with some new staff. And internships, there are internship rules and laws as well, mandated by the state. So I also want to make sure all businesses and municipalities are aware of what those laws and regulations are, because an internship does need to be educational. And then in some places, an internship could be credit. In other places, it can be credit or paid, but it can't be both. Sometimes the rules by school or college vary. But we know we want to increase our internship participation in our business community. And then also thinking about other things outside of the box that show our young people that our business community is invested in them. So I'm working on with a local partner, a robotics program that he proposed that will go to school districts. And then as they're building race cars and they race them, businesses will sponsor each race car. And this also gives a connection between youth and businesses. The other thing I'm working on for this fall is Adirondack arts program. And I've already met with Crandall Library about this, but all the school districts would have an arts competition. And the theme, of course, would be Adirondack art and students submitting that art. And then the winning artwork will go into our local businesses. So why do I care about that as for workforce? Because it's students connecting to our business community. It's our business community connecting to student art, and it's free Adirondack artwork. And imagine the confidence builder that it goes to young people when they see their artwork in a local restaurant. And these things that are not where we don't think of them as workforce development, they actually are. Because we're connecting young people to our business community here. We're recognizing their skills and talents, and then it's showcased here in our community. So I believe career exploration and investing in our youth is a variety of programs and partnerships. You're very welcome.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I really thank you, and thank you for such positive energy you have toward this. This is really enlightening to hear. My question is more, how are we working on trades? I'm in the trade end of the business, and I just wake up and go to work. People just wait for me to show up, and they can't find anybody. And it's a very good trade. I've been doing it on myself for 40 years. But these kids, I have a gift, and I know there are kids out there. I have trained a lot of them in my years that have this gift of being able to, I call it finding the algorithms of how things work and why things work, and you can fix just about anything. So how are we working toward that? Because we're dying out there.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan, for that question. The $250,000 that the ARPA committee approved for a position for my office for the next 4 years, that job title, I've researched others around the state. It'll be called Work-Based Learning Coordinator, most likely if civil service and HR are okay with that. But that job specifically is to focus on the trades and career exploration with the school districts and with BOCES. I'm not competing with BOCES. I work with BOCES every day. But it's just to enhance and expand, and also to make sure that the other school districts, right? If a student is not enrolled in BOCES programs, but let's say they're at Queensberry High School, making sure that they also get career exploration programs through this person, which will be a new position.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Supervisor Driscoll. Ben, could you come up to a mic? Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you, Liza. We've often spoken about an additional population that you engage in career exploration. That was confirmed at the luncheon Friday. Those are area veterans. One particular great example was the helmet manufacturer in the town of Queensbury. So in addition to the youth and our seniors, you're also identifying a very important population. Those are area veterans who served us, and we deserve to serve them also. Thank you.
And if I can comment on that. Thank you,
Absolutely, please.
Supervisor Driscoll, thank you. We do have a strong passion for serving our veterans as well. We have 2 staff who are state employees in our office who serve veterans specifically. And every year, our county outperforms other counties with service to veterans. We work with local community partners to make sure that veterans are aware of services, but also thinking about the employers like Kirsch Helmets that have a priority of hiring veterans. And very often, some veterans have disabilities, but they still have so many skills and talents to offer our business community. And so when I think of people with disabilities, I'm always thinking about our veteran population as well.
Any other questions? So I do have a question or two and a comment. Liza, you talked about the disengaged and that segment that are afraid of losing benefits. I've seen this over the last few years as I've been struggling to try to figure out how to make some of this happen. And it's true that some people will not take a job because they'll make less than they have with the benefits that they receive. What can we do about that? Is there some letter that we can write to lobby someone to make something like this happen? Because I know it's federal and state dollars.
Yeah, great question. This New York State has put funding aside for disability resource coordinator for each area, each workforce area. And they are actively recruiting for that. We've been very transparent with the state. The challenge for recruiting for that position is that it's requiring a master's degree, but the salary is not competitive. So we are not getting applicants for that job, but that is a position that the state has identified needs to be a focus area in serving people with disabilities to find that happy medium between not losing all of their benefits, which many of them worry about, but also being actively employed. I want to continue to build strong relationships with CWI and SAIL. We're already in touch with them very often, but we need to figure out what the other gaps are. These are the experts in those agencies around this topic, and we need to continue to work together to build programs and partnerships. But we do need a designated person, I believe, in each county to be doing this work at each job center. So even the state position is for 3 counties. I don't think that will suffice. So yes, we can add that to the advocacy point that Supervisor Hogan mentioned.
Thank you. And I guess the next question is more of a statement, but you do all this for $50,000 worth of federal funds. So just a point of reference for everyone here in the room. But Liza, you and I have talked about this. There's an impending recession. What does that mean to all of this that you've mentioned today? And is it going to probably increase the need of your services and support? So I don't know if you have just a quick comment about what a recession might do to what's happening here.
Absolutely. Excellent question. Typically in a recession, we see higher unemployment because businesses have to let workers go. So we're already preparing for that. I know Lake George Chamber is hosting a webinar tomorrow about the shared work program, which is what many businesses took advantage of at the start of the pandemic, where their employees will take partial unemployment benefits while also maintaining their job. That way we're not laying off more people. So that's one thing we're already working on in local chambers and other partners are also making sure businesses have that information. We will see. I think when I saw the Fed interest rate go up, and Mr. Cipollone and I talked about this a little bit, I'm hesitant that is going to help curb a recession from happening. Mr. Siplon is more educated around economics than I am. But I believe that we're heading into a recession because of the supply chain challenges. And not, regardless of the gasoline situation, right? We know a lot of that is related to the war. Supply chain issues were a result of the pandemic. And a lot of things have bottlenecked because of it, right? And then employers are paying more for supplies that they need to do their business. And then those costs have ripple effects, right? Whether it's laying off workers, hiring, charging customers more. So those ripple effects are leading to a recession. I personally believe that the supply chain issues have to be addressed, right? The root cause. We can't just Band-Aid everything. We have to get to the root causes of issues in order to avoid a recession or to, curb it to where it's not as bad. But we do expect higher unemployment. We do expect some businesses to struggle. And as always, just like in the last couple of years, the business who were able to pivot their goods and services or their operations are the ones that have been able to sustain their business. And so it's not the best advice, right? But it's everybody's just got to kind of stay on their toes and adjust to this really unpredictable economy as we move through it. But trust and believe we'll be ready to service anybody who is laid off. There are additional services for folks who are laid off or dislocated worker services. And we know we still have a surplus of jobs. So even though we add 1,000 to 2,000 more workers in the summer, we still have a surplus of jobs. So I believe that we'll have another strong tourism season. And but if a recession comes this fall or winter, we'll be ready to help any dislocated workers.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Any others? Mr. Lehman, any questions regarding workforce development? You're there? Hearing none. Thanks, Liza.
Thank you,
I
Chair.
appreciate it. Moving on, Mr. Siplon, an update from the EDC.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I want to show you a quick video that we debuted at the luncheon on Friday. I think you saw it, but many in the room did not. We'll give her a second to pull it up. One of the things that's really important about this video is I'm watching with interest the discussion that's going on in this room and every other room about things like recession, the interest rate hikes, our employment situation. I don't know how many of you saw, but we were actually asked to comment by one of the local television stations in Albany about the impact of the interest rate hike, which I found to be really promising, that what we're doing up here attracts attention to where people in the Capital District actually think we might know something about this topic. And so I spent three minutes live on one of the television stations talking about what I thought the impact was going to be. And we did that from a really strong basis of economic, not only performance over the last few years, but growth. Remember that the word recession means that our growth, that is a reversal of growth. Without necessarily turning this into an entire thing about a recession, we have had unbelievable economic growth, not only here locally, but in other parts of our economy for a long period of time. This cycle always occurs. It has to occur. If it doesn't occur, we have hyperinflation and we have things like currencies that run out of control. So there is a natural correction here. But one thing that's very, very different about this situation, as Liza talked about, is that we are at full employment. In fact, we are at net negative employment. We have thousands of open positions right now. So we are as poised to absorb the impacts of a slowdown as you could possibly be. That does not mean that it will not be impactful. It also means that it's clear what we need to engage in, which is the continued investment in our workforce and in our community to be able to stay resilient. if there's one lesson we learned over the last couple of years, it's that when this community comes together, and this was my message on Friday, for those of you who were there, when this community comes together, the public and the private, we outperform. Our tourism economy outperformed nearly the rest of the, not only the state, but the nation in terms of how it adjusted to that net new reality. And since that time, we've now been performing as fast as we can. We are now throttled by how many people we can actually put to work in the industry, not by how many people want to come here. The same is true with our businesses. Sounds like maybe we're having trouble with the video, so I'm just kind of killing a little bit of time here. But in the video, you're going to see 4 businesses that we chose to highlight that may not be well-known stories. There are many that are well-known stories. Our medical device industry is world-renowned. Some of our larger firms are well-known. Just the healthcare sector of our economy alone is dramatic. It's large, but it's also very much in need. There are several hundred open jobs right now between Hudson Headwaters and Glens Falls Hospital. Are we getting there? Sorry, I was looking for the video though. It's an MP4 on that same memory stick. I don't know that we're going to cover those charts because I want to respect your time, but we will, just as Liza did, maybe we'll do that at another time. I think it's really important. We had the speaker at on Friday who was the leader of the team that developed this paper, and she gave a remarkable presentation. We have that available. I think we filmed it, so anybody that wasn't there would like to see it. We're happy to share it. Here we go.
Inspiring confidence, spurring ideas.
Do we hear that?
It's all right.
I don't know how to make it play through the.
Like that.
Storch was founded by my grandfather and great uncle in 1945. Today, we're a chain of over 350 convenience stores in 32 counties across 2 states. My name is Gary Dake. I'm the president of Storch Shops. We had our first store in Warren County in 1969 in the town of Warrensburg. Currently, Storch has 17 shops in Warren County with over 225 employees. Storch has been doing a continuous reinvestment in Warren County. Over the last 5 years, we've invested $17 million to rebuild 8 stores in the county. Warren County is a great place to do business. It has a vibrant, diverse economy with a government that understands the balance between being business friendly and having a quality of life. Warren County is like a Storch make your own Sunday. With so many good things to choose from, it's always what you want it to be.
Our long-term vision for Warren County is for it to become a center of excellence for head protection here in the United States. My name is Donnie DeVito. I'm the president and chief operating officer of Kirsch Helmets. Kirsch began making our 100% American-made helmet in 2017, and we chose Warren County for our manufacturing operations. The founder of Kirsch Helmets, Jason Kirschon, he was inspired here, he lives here. We're making a better motorcycle helmet. And our liner can do in a half an inch what it takes 3 inches of foam to do. Our fluid displacement liner offers style, safety, and comfort, along with improved protection. Warren County has a great workforce. They come to work every day, they work hard. We absolutely love the workforce development programs here and the support we get. We're investing millions of dollars here in Warren County. And we believe we can become the next billion-dollar company to come out of the capital region.
So the green economy is rapidly growing in this country, and Brookfield Renewable is bringing 50 new green jobs to Warren County. My name is Mark Luciano. I am the Stakeholder Relations Manager for Brookfield Renewable. Brookfield is one of the largest owners, operators, and developers of green energy in the country. Brookfield has been generating green hydroelectric energy in Warren County since 2004. We have 2 hydroelectric facilities in Warren County and over 25 employees. Warren County is a great place to live, work, and play, and it's a strategic location for us. That's why Brookfield recently decided to relocate its National Control Center to Warren County. We're investing in a brand new building and more than doubling our workforce. We have a lot of confidence in the workforce here in Warren County. There are highly skilled and hardworking people here. We're one of the world's largest renewable energy companies and relocating our national control center to Warren County.
In 2005, we gave up successful legal careers in California to come to Warren County, and we bought a 50-acre farm. Essentially, we gave up the rat race to come here and start making cheese. My name is Sheila Flanagan, and I'm co-owner of Nettle Meadow Farm and Artisan Cheese Company. By 2020, our handmade artisan cheeses had received international recognition. So we bought a dilapidated old restaurant building, and in early 2022, moved all of our cheese making there and opened a retail store and our tasting room tavern. We chose Warren County because of its natural beauty and because of its proximity to large city centers like New York City and Boston. Altogether, we've invested more than $2 million in Warren County properties and have put more than $10 million into Warren County salaries and local businesses that we've worked with over the years. Nettle Meadows Keunig cheese was voted one of the top 10 cheeses in the world, and we make it right here in Warren County.
Everywhere you turn in Warren County, New York, businesses are growing. It's happening across all sectors with companies big and small. People are investing in their hometowns. Businesses are moving here for the quality of life in our communities and the incredible natural resources in our backyard.
Invest with us here in Warren County, New York.
Start a business.
Relocate your business.
Warren County's best days are ahead.
Thank you for showing that. I think sometimes we get really into the, I know we do at the EDC, into the data, and we're a lot about the need. I think every once in a while it's good to take a step back and look at where we are. We did not write or script any of that. Those are the stories that were told by 4 businesses here about their experience. I don't think you could literally ask people to say more favorable things than those 4 businesses did. Those benefits are accruing not only to Glens Falls and Queensbury, but they are accruing across the county. Gene, you know that Nettle Meadow expanded out of Thurman and into Lake Luzerne, both communities benefiting from not only their work, but your support of their work. Both Nettle Meadow Farms and Kirsch Helmets are both LDC loan recipients. That is no accident. You've created an infrastructure that creates some of this. Brookfield Energy is a recent recipient of a Warren, Washington County IDA grant. These programs work. I think sometimes we forget the fact of how successful we have been. The fact that we have an employment, what I would consider to be a good problem, if, you know, not having enough jobs, that's a bad problem. Having too many jobs, that's a good problem. And people believe that this is not only a place that's got it right in the past, but it's getting it right now. I've never heard Gary Dake say anything quite so nice. In my experience with him, it can be a little mixed. And he literally said Warren County is the government that balances the quality of life with the needs of business. This is important. You are poised to succeed. Now the question is whether or not we're ready to say yes to that success. Those of you who were there on Friday, we went deep on this topic. The thing that is going to thwart us is whether or not we have enough human capital to continue this, whether our economy today will be sustainable 20 years from now. But think back 10 years ago, literally, 2012, coming out of the housing crisis, a lot of meltdown, buildings in downtown Glens Falls, more than half of them empty. That's what it was 10 years ago. It is not that situation here. How did that happen? It happened because the public sector got together with the private sector and started working in ways that went beyond what others did. We now have to do that around our new challenge. And that new challenge is simple. Companies will follow the workforce. You heard Brookfield Energy say they're moving their center here from the Boston area. That's because they believe that it's going to be more likely that they can successfully grow it here than in the Boston area. Think about that. The pressures on our labor market will only grow. Companies will follow where they believe the people will be. What do the people need? All the things you're working on and all the things we're working on, in addition to attracting and supporting business. Things like closing that CDTA gap, which I know you have heard and I know that you are working diligently on. But connecting us to the rest of the Capital District, that's a wonderful thing. That allows movement of our workforce from the southern part of the capital district into an area where people do want to work. We just got to give them the opportunity. It would also allow us to continue to expand that network across our own county so that we can bring more communities into that mesh. Things like childcare, bringing women back into the workforce. Things like all the investments that you're making in LISA to try to figure out how to get the disengaged populations back into the workforce. All of these things, together with the work in areas like broadband, where we've now made it to where the vast majority, more than 90% of the households in Warren County have access to a modern broadband standard. That's also true of anybody who would look to locate a business, whether it's a one-person business or a 50-person business. All of those investments are paying off. But the one thing that is going to thwart us is we don't have any housing right now. I know you know it. If we deal with it in an organized, planned way, not ways that turn our communities upside down, but ways that acknowledge the fact that we have people who want to come here. We have businesses that need those employees to come here. And if we can put our heads together to develop coherent, sensible expansions in housing, we will literally continue to outcompete. We are already in a position of strength. And it's not just my words. These are the words of 4 businesses, people who owe me or the EDC nothing. I'm not even sure all of them are members. And yet what they're telling us is that this place is as good as it gets in terms of meeting their current needs. It's now up to us to figure out whether we want to continue that into the next generation. And what will thwart that, or what will expand that, is our commitment to housing. Now, I would like to go deeper another time on some of the stuff that's in here that helps underpin this, why this is not going away. Our birth rate has not been at replacement value since 1971. There's just nothing we can do about that in this country. And New York is older, and New York has fewer kids than the rest of the country. So that problem is actually worse here than it is everywhere else, but we all share it. We are not going to, there's no silver bullet coming around the corner. When the pandemic, whenever we believe that we're in a post-pandemic world, whenever that time comes, we will still be short workers. It's like when I was out at North Creek with Supervisor Hogan's constituents, and they were asking a lot of questions about housing. And I said, you know what, I'm absolutely certain of next year, your house is going to be worth 10% more than it was this year. No matter how mad you are right now about the fact your house may be worth more than you thought, is going to be worth more. That is what we have bought by being so successful. The only thing that will turn those kind of dynamics around is for us to increase the housing supply. And it is the one thing that our business community needs. So I just wanted to try to give you a sense that not everything is terrible. In fact, things are really, really good, but there are still problems when we're on the right side of good. I applaud you for your efforts, by the way, to fund all of Liza's initiatives. I couldn't have told you better places to invest money than the places that you're already committing to. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Yes, Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does, Mr. Supplon had pointed out that 3 of those businesses had received help from local government to be able to become established here. And that's a holistic approach on solving these problems. And as Liza brought up in her presentation as well, and the 3 columns you had on your slide there also is taking that holistic approach. It's just not one silver bullet, but it is bringing together all of these various aspects that we can offer in the county to make it.
You're welcome. I do have one question. And Jim, if you could remind me, I thought this was an interesting piece of information that was presented Friday. In 2030 something, there will be more seniors in the US than there will be children. 2032?
More adults than children the first time in US history.
That will occur in Warren County communities sooner than that. Many communities that are represented in this room will see that conversion occur in the next few years. And we need desperately an infusion of new people. One of the things that underscores that's really hard to understand is that our housing density is half of what it once was. So if you have a house that was built in Chestertown, for instance, that housed a typical family in the 1930s or 40s, that family would have been 4.6 as of 1965 in terms of number of people that were in it. At earlier times, probably even more. Today, that house typically 1.8. So that same house has half as many people living in it. This is why the counterintuitiveness of how can we be having a housing crisis if our population is declined or stays stable it doesn't immediately make sense. But one of the things we need to consider is, are there things we can do in our communities that will allow us to get back to the density that that house was originally built for? And either whether it's making that available to become a multifamily unit, or whether we would allow certain types of auxiliary units on that lot once supported 5 to 6 people. When our communities were at their most vibrant, that's what each one of those units was supporting. The places from an infrastructure standpoint is set up to support that many people. We just have to decide whether or not we're ready to let them be there.
Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you. I've
You're
heard you
welcome.
say that before. Do we know, was that multi-generational or was it the size of families? back
There's
then?
about 5 factors that they go into a fair amount of detail on in the studies that we're quoting from the demographic drought. But the most significant of those is that the fundamental family structure is different than it once was. We have fewer kids for sure. The number of kids is half of what it was 35 years ago. But the families are oftentimes today, almost 50% of the families nationwide are single parent households. So you can kind of come at this from a variety of different ways as to why that density is down. But the one thing we know is that if you look in Warren County, our average household is still under 2. Hard to get your head around that, because you can all look around and think of places where that's not the case. I live at 7 Coolidge Avenue in Glens Falls. The owner 3 owners ago had 6 people in that house. Then they last ones I bought it from had 4 people in that house. Today, my wife and I live in that house, same house. That's the story that's happened everywhere.
Follow-up question? Homes that are second homes, are those counted as 0 occupancy?
No, I think it depends on how their census is determined. So if in the community where that person sits, their housing, their density is what is calculated. So wherever it is that they're the full-time resident. But it's trickier and trickier to figure this out, because the line on a second home blurred during the pandemic. What used to be a second home became the first home for an awful lot of people.
Supervisor Garrity, Chairman Garrity.
65 residents in our community have been picked up as short-term rentals. So that's taken a lot of homes off the housing market. People have decided to rent out these homes, and that's something. 65, we have 65 listed in town of Washington. Good portion of those are homes that people could have had up for purchase. That's
So-
also impacting.
So important to understand that dynamic is part of this. The short-term rentals, as by your own data that you've been able to gather so far, somewhere between 1,000 and maybe 1,500 homes are currently being listed as Airbnbs across Warren County. That's against a population of roughly 25,000 households. So you're talking about somewhere in a neighborhood of 3 to 5% of the total amount of properties in Warren County that are there. It is a non-trivial number for sure. But it is important to understand that many of our communities have been this way before there was an Airbnb. I mean, your community has been a place where people have had second homes, Supervisor Hogan, for as long as Johnsburg has existed. So I don't mean to say that it doesn't matter. I also think it's an important thing to remember that Airbnb just did a better job of commercializing what had already been in place in many communities. If we got them all back, we would still have a housing shortage, but we definitely need to figure out how we work this from every angle.
Any other questions, comments? Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you. Well, Mr. Ziplon is still here. I want to say thank you for being at the Common Ground Alliance Forum up at Gore Mountain the other day and participating in the housing breakout session. That was all great information that came through and a broad audience.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Jim. I think between what you and Eliza have brought up today, kind of enlightens everyone about the challenges that we have in our economic situation. And it's one of the reasons why I engage so much, because it's such a complicated problem, and we're moving in the right direction, I think, but we still need support. So without any more questions, Jim, thank you. Going to turn it over to our planning department. And Sarah's here today. Wayne is on vacation. Hopefully Wayne isn't listening in so that he can enjoy his vacation with his wife. Wayne, I hope you got that. But Sarah, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. So our first item on the agenda is a request to close capital project, a First Wilderness capital project. There's about $72,000. The intent is to return that to transfer account. These projects that were in this account have been completed. We'd like to transfer that to a new account that can be used as match for upcoming grant applications.
I have a first to move that forward. Do I have a second? Supervisor Frazier, thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion's passed.
Okay, item number 2 on the agenda, Ethan's gonna talk about, this is just a request to extend a contract with LNS Energy.
Yeah, so about a year ago, we engaged LNS Energy through NYSERDA to do a municipal building energy audit. The whole idea is that they're gonna go through to a level 2 audit of this entire facility and come up with a set of recommendations to save us money, whether it's, the building management systems, how the mechanicals are done and operated. And they just need a little more time because they have to work with various players. Our contract currently will be expiring, but we need to give them a couple more months to finish their work. We can hopefully start making some decisions that will save all of us a lot of money once we get that report done. So we need authorized $2,000 more for some data that they need to get. Then extend it out to the end of September.
Motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Hogan, thank you. Second by Supervisor McGowan. Questions, comments? Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you. Ethan, what changed that they need more time and money?
Basically, there were some assumptions about the building operating systems and the amount of data that we were able to pull off of them. A lot of the I think it's the pumps and whatnot, they could either have a very, I don't know the exact details of why we don't have the technology to read all of the data logs, but that's essentially what they need to do. There was a presumption that we had access to more information than we do have. We don't have as much information as we thought we had. So
Was this contract the result of a bid? Remind me.
this was the result of a NYSERDA Flex Tech program in which we got $20,000 worth of work for just about $10,000. So
But we put it out to bid. and-
yeah, we had 3 different, we've got 3 different bids on this one.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. So the $9,984 is the total amount, or does that include the extra $2,000? Or are we requesting $2,000?
We're requesting up to $2,000 more. Realistically, there's not going to be that much money needed for this, but I just didn't want to have to go through the process of requesting $2,000 only to have to go get another $100 or something like that.
Okay, so is that on the resolution request before us today? We have to extend the contract, but there's no mention of the amount of money involved.
Yeah, that could be oversight then.
So where should that go in?
Modify the resolution.
Resolution include $2,000 in the contract change.
That was,
Do you have grant money for that already?
For the $2,000, we have an agreement with the project manager from NYSERDA that they could cover $875 of this. It was up to us to cover the other up to the $2,000. So no, I don't have a earmarked source of fund, general funds or.
Supervisor Hogan.
Will this enable us to unlock any future funding? For completing this, will this allow us to unlock future funding in the clean communities or the climate smart communities?
It is one action item, so it could put us in a beneficial position when it comes to evaluating grant applications. At the end of the day, though, this project should result in cost savings for taxpayers just by nature of the fact that the recommendations in it will be for saving energy and money. So the idea too is that we can get all of this money reimbursed back to us. Right now, we're going to get, we're only paying for 50% of the cost of the project. If we implement some of the recommendations of this study, NYSERDA has an arrangement in which they can give us 50%, the other 50% of the program. So they're really just trying to incentivize us to save energy. So conceivably, if we get this study and we implement some of the recommendations, we could get up to 100% of the money back that we spent on the contractor.
Supervisor McGowan, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So they kind of overlooked that when they gave us a bid of what data we can get off our certain pumps. I mean, we keep hearing about costs and savings, We built a cogeneration plant even from the beginning, way before I was here. And it didn't make sense to me, and a sensible thing, how we can build a building, maintain it, employ it, keep it up, buy the gas, buy the water, and create electricity cheaper than we can get it coming over Hudson River, right down the road. And then we're told, hey, let's put in some geothermal pumps, we can get some heat out of that ground, to help our 1958 building that really has no insulation in it. Now, I've built homes that are set up for geothermal, and we still have to have a backup here. So, I always hear about these savings and this, another study. And, I know we've looked at our windows, which were redone. It always seems like I see more costs, more costs, more costs. And then at the end, we end up paying more for some of these recommendations. So, I would really like to see with this money, and I'm happy that we're able to get some grant money, and NYSERDA pays, paying for some of this cost, but I would just like to see where we actually can save and without always occurring more costs or trying to figure out how we can save.
Yeah, I
Does that
understand
make
your
any
intent
sense?
on that. Yeah. There was actually one option, which was to do a level 1 energy audit. It's the American Society of Engineers. I don't know the rest of it, but that was the level 1. And that's a very vague sort of like, hey, maybe work on the installation a little bit. The level 2 audit is much more specific, and it will give us implementable actions that should result in cost savings for taxpayers. So,
well, as long as, we can see this and I have it spelled out where I can actually sit down and read it. And go through it, because I've always sometimes questioned some of these practices. So thank you.
Ethan, if you don't mind, LNS, is that the organization that said that they're going to evaluate our utility bills and come back and say that we've got?
no, that was a different, that was a little bit confusing when that all came around, but no, they're different.
It's not that one. Okay. So these guys are used to doing this type of work,
Correct.
right? Our contract isn't set up in such a way that they should be completing this work without providing an extra $2,000.
The understanding that we had at the onset of this project was that we could have access to all of the data logs that show us where we're spending energy in this building and all the mechanical systems. We do not have the capacity to do all that data logging in-house. There was some understanding that maybe we could have done that. But in order to really get a look what's going on under the hood, we do need to have, we need to get access into these data loggers.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Leggett, you had another question?
Right, so for the $2,000, 1,000 of that would be reimbursable by the grant.
875.
So the county needs to come up with the other 1,125.
Yeah, and that's realistically, the amount of money that this additional work is going to cost is probably closer to $1,500.
And can that be pulled out of any other .4s of the planning department?
You know, we did get at the onset of this project, we were going to use a $5,000 designation grant that we received through the Climate Smart Communities program. We had intended on using that $5,000 to offset the $9,000 contract cost. So we could tap into that designation grant that we got.
I think all that need to be in place when it comes before the board. Is that correct?
Right, if you currently have enough appropriation in your budget to cover it, then you're good, but if you don't, we'll need a budget amendment.
What's your approach, Ethan? General fund or out of your budget codes?
I'd prefer to do it general fund, but I think we could track down this designation grant, do it that way as well. I mean, for what it is, I think it would be appropriate to take it out of general fund, being as the planning department is, you know, we're doing this work as part of the, you know, sustainability initiative and our involvement with the climate task force and whatnot. But realistically, you know, this is like a building grounds or, you know, DPW type situation. The planning department, you know, we help get the studies and get the money, but taking the money out to
So if I make a suggestion, Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor McGowan, would you mind modifying your resolution to refer this to finance for $1,125? Would that cover what we're looking to do? I think so.
I'm willing to make that modification, but is that the right way to get it done? And the quickest way to get it done?
I think it's the quickest way to done because do you know about your budget codes? Can you get that money out of that?
I'll have to talk to Wayne when he gets back from.
Right. So that'll mean another delay of a month.
I make a suggestion.
Of course. please do.
If you're confident in $875 being funded by a grant, we'll do a budget amendment for $875 in expenses and revenues. And then the remainder of what you need to get up to the 1,500 or the 2,000, whatever the case may be, transfer it out of your salary codes because you have savings in there.
Yeah, it's a very small amount of money, so it's whatever makes it work. I'm sure it's not going to impede, you know, our operations. Just whatever's the most expeditious way to get this done. Realistically, I want to get this done as fast as possible because we do have a contract that's up for renewal with the current group that's providing the control systems here.
So I'm not sure now where we go with the modification.
Ryan just said a budget amendment of 875 and transfer funds from salary codes.
Okay, as long as we're not going to get in trouble with Wayne when he gets back.
Okay, and the amendment.
Okay, so the first and the
Figure it out.
second for this new resolution, modified resolution. Good with that? Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, items number 3 and 4 are just housekeeping. During the recession, we had a resolution or a policy in place to charge the municipalities for GIS services. We no longer follow that practice. That is resolution 475, and then resolution 650 was an hourly rate for reimbursement. We also no longer follow that rate. We just do prevailing hourly rates based on our current salary and fringe. So these are just 2 housekeeping items to rescind these resolutions that are no longer current practice.
We have a motion for both. First from Supervisor Hogan, second from Supervisor Leggett. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries also. Over to discussion items.
Thank you. Next, we are going to hear from Patricia, who's going to be discussing her paper on the prospect of forming a housing trust fund for Warren County. That paper is included in your agenda packet.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it's been a while since I've addressed the committee. Many of you know that my passion, long-term passion, has been the issue of housing in this county and the funds that we've brought over the years to do rehab, new home ownership, a number of other select programs. But today, I thought it was appropriate to, given the essence of where we are on time, I did have a number of bullet items, but I think I can get it down to basically one bullet and a comment on the housing trust, the creation of a housing trust fund. As many of you are aware, we received money, we were awarded last December funding from the Housing Trust Fund Corporation to undertake a housing needs and market demand analysis. And we received $46,000 for that initiative, and we provided as match to that $10,000 from recapture monies from an old housing program we had. And we also received $10,000 in a contract form from EDC Warren County. Plus the department is adding roughly $10,000 of in-kind services to develop this plan. It's been a while since we've been able to move this forward, and part of our issue has been that the agency, ACR, they identified 5 communities. They actually awarded 5 communities funding for a housing study, and they occur in various regions of the state. The agency has formed an internal panel. This is out of character from how they've done business in the past, to review the nature of what is going to be contained within that housing study, to ensure some level of consistency in terms of data collection, issues identified, and programs that would be accessed at a later date, presumably from the completion of the project. So we are fortunate that most of what they have asked us to do in terms of additional information is being processed and covered by what Jim's housing work group has been doing. And I've been sitting in on that weekly meeting since I think like last July. So in addition to a variety of data that is being collected, additional data that's being collected, we have, to my knowledge, 3 communities that are counting on the content and the goals and objectives to be achieved in that housing needs analysis and market analysis for the county's comprehensive plan, for the town of Queensbury's comprehensive plan update, and also the town of Johnsburg is going to do a modified town plan, comprehensive plan. So we want to make sure that we address enough information that can be put into those various plans within the county. One of the things that they have asked us to do, and they have asked each of the 5 selected grantees, is to identify an organizational structure that could facilitate the movement of money, be they local, be they ARPA monies, be they other CDBG funded activities, to come up with a structure. And I provided, you were provided a paper that I prepared on housing trust funds. And I won't go into detail on it, because certainly you could read it at your leisure and understand what we are trying to do here. So before we collect the data and put the RFP out, I wanted to make sure that we had an understanding, or at least the larger group had an understanding that in our administrative plan and in our housing needs report will likely put a typical type of structure that could be developed and used for the receiving of funds and the disbursement of funds. And that's what I had detailed by calling it a local housing trust fund. So there, I can go into probably detail at nauseum, but given the lateness of the morning, I'm not sure you want to talk about this at this moment in time, but I certainly am available to discuss this either in on one-on-one or with a smaller group of people who would like to go into the deep weeds of what the housing trust fund would be. But I thought I didn't want to presume and have an element added to our needs and market demand analysis without kind of discussing it with a larger group. So really that's, I mean, I could go into other things, but I think that's kind of the gist of what I wanted to talk about today. But I will say this, and I can listen to Liza talk for a long time and she leaves me wanting to know more. So I would hope that when we complete our housing work that, you'll feel that same way as well. I was asked to participate in a review session with Dutchess County, who finished a housing needs report back in March. And they did a terrific job. It was a consultant-based plan with their infographics and the information. And we're hoping that our report will kind of have that same flavor, have the same look to it. I think it's easy to read. But what I think I was most, shall I say, shocked about when I sat in on the meeting was to hear their county administrator indicate that they were going to use this plan, and they haven't developed a housing trust fund, a local housing trust fund yet. I think they're actually going to use the one that we developed here. But their intention is to initiate and activate their housing programs, particularly on the low end, the affordable end, where you need other funding coming in. Dutchess County, now we know they're in the lower Hudson Valley and incomes are a bit differently, but they're committing to an amount of $13 million into their housing trust fund, to be followed by $2 million a year for the next 10 years to address the housing needs and issues within all the communities, within their county. Now, I'm not suggesting by any stretch that we should approach that amount or half that amount or quarter that amount. But I think what it showed me was that what the housing needs are within the state, and what the commitment is starting to rise in the local communities as to what they need to do to address their housing issues. So I just wanted to bring that up in terms of looking to the future as to what you might want to do in terms of some consideration on funding some level, within like a local housing trust fund. So it was, I pretty much had sticker shock after I heard that number. So I thought, well, I certainly wouldn't advocate that for the county, but I think it goes to show you the desperate nature of what our communities are facing with the housing problem. So that's really all I have today. I thank you for your attention. And if you have any comments on this, I'd be happy to either answer them now or at a time when it's convenient. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions from the committee? Supervisor Hogan.
One observation and two questions. Thank you for softening the beaches with the Board of Supervisors on investment in housing needs. It may be six-figure numbers we need to invest in this. So I think people need to hear this and they need to hear it often, and it's brave of you. Oh, sorry. When are we going out to RFP?
We have our format, we have an outline and with the division. The division has indicated to me, because I continue to ask this question every week, when are you going to rule on, are we done with the data collection and the items that need to be put in here? Because we need to put this out as soon as possible. I'm hoping that we're going to get an RFP out by the end of the month, because all the pieces are there. And it's a question of their internal group saying yes to now a larger group of other communities. Well, there's only 4 others, but the point is that they're trying to achieve consistency in what they're going to get back, because they want to use of these reports as a prototype for other communities who come in asking for similar assistance. So I think it's kind of gracious of us to kind of stall our own efforts as well as the other 4 communities, but nonetheless, we want to get to it. And, you know, I want to get this out and about, so.
3 questions. So am I correct in understanding you that we're waiting for them to approve all of the communities and then we're going to simultaneously be competing
Well,
for the
they,
same?
no, they're not going to approve all of them. They're coming to, everybody is acknowledging the agreement that this is the nature of the data that they're going to ask for within their RFPs that are going out. So I think it's more of a conversation. And I've indicated to them that it's like, we've waited long enough. It's time to, you know, push this down the road and put this out to the consultants. So,
but timing wise, are all these communities going to be going out at the same time?
well, they don't have as, we're the only application that had a market demand analysis in there. And they're particularly interested in our application because we had a market demand analysis. And we're hoping that will help us with their projects under the federal tax credit program and the state tax credit program. So we're pretty much ready to go. And I think they'll release us. They'll release a larger group, but I think those other 4 communities are going to be adding a market demand analysis to their work. But I don't, if you're leading to the question, are we going to have trouble, you know, competing with the other 4 communities? I don't think so. That we have enough, there's, you know, with the work that has been done with the Broad Street Commons and other projects in the county, there's been a lot of market data collected to identify what the market demand is here. And I think with the talent that the county has in terms of, you know, EDC, with our workforce development office, with the ability of the GIS department to, you know, provide a level of information that they've already been working on. I think I'm happy to say and proud to say that we're kind of a leading edge of counties who is working on this. I mean, even Dutchess County didn't put together a housing trust fund to the nature that you know we have done here. So I don't see it. If your question is leading to, are we going to have trouble getting the correct consultant? I don't think so. Not with the base level of data that we have here and the way we've structured, you know, our outline. So we're at that ready to go spot. So.
Okay, my last question is a 2-part question. Is the county planning department going to be able to handle all of this work, given the fact that you have been unable to hire an additional person? And the second question is, did we refer that to personnel, or are we supposed to be, and why are we not addressing that today?
I'm going to address that a little bit later.
How much later? But do you guys need this extra person, right? You need this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe we need 2. Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Chairman. There, I'm just impressed that now that you're sitting up front there, that Supervisor Hogan fills in for you with all the questions from all of us there. So I've been working and sitting on an Adirondack-wide land bank steering committee. We have put together 2 land bank roundtables. There's another one coming up on the 29th. It's an in-person meeting, and land banks are seen as an effective tool, one of many that will be needed to address the housing situation. I'm happy to see that that is something that would fit under the umbrella of a housing trust. So thank you for putting this together so that we can get all of the enabling legislation to be able to address our problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for Pat? Thank you, Pat. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing when it's finally going to be done. Any challenges that you have besides help?
Is this directed at me?
Yes, it is. Related to the housing trust,
Oh.
any significant challenges other
Uh,
than support?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest challenge is just going to be getting it out and getting the right people and getting them to understand the quality and of information we need back. So, no,
Excellent, thank you. Moving on, next one.
Okay.
Status on the septic update.
Yep, Ethan's gonna give us an update of what's happening.
This will be a 2-second thing. Last year, Warren County was awarded $340,000 to do a septic replacement program around Lake George. We received a lot of interest in the program. Demand far outpaces the supply of money that we have for this. And currently, we have sent out award letters to as many projects as we can fund right now, and over half of them have been completed. And then just additionally, we did lobby the state a bit earlier this spring for additional funding for this program. We continue to hear from constituents that it's a good program, we just need more of it. So that effort's underway too. So we'll hopefully get word from the state that we get more money, but that's where we're at right now.
Thanks. Any questions? Move on to the next one, Sarah.
Okay, next item is an update on projects that we have in our sites for applying for CFA funding. Ethan's also gonna briefly discuss that. That's included in your agenda packet.
This will be very quick. So right now, we have, I think, 3 to 4 applications that are definitely going to be submitted. We have worked with some other regional partners and reached out to all the different communities to see what their needs are, where they're at with project readiness. So we're going to work with the regional planning board to help the town of Horicon do a library project, stabilize historic structure. We're to work with the town of Chester to work on a gateway project. Since about 2001, the town of Chester has known that the Route 9, Route 8 gateway needs a facelift. And subsequently, the town's invested a lot of money in their downtown Hamlet area and in Dynamite Hill Recreation Area. So we think this could actually be a pretty good catalytic project. 20 years of planning studies, now it's time to really do something. So we want to get construction, design documents, and the permitting out of the way for this project. So it's going to, work with APA, DOT, DEC. We think it's a strong application. Additionally, on the list there was a mention to the Climate Smart Communities program. We are not going to put an application in through that program this year. Just got word from our partners over at the Capital District Planning Commission that they have more staff and they can actually help us move forward on some of our sustainability projects with their support. So that's a really nice thing to have and not have to go through the work of applying for grant funding and administration of it. Wayne's not here, but he wanted to put forward the idea of the first Wilderness Heritage Corridor action plan update. That was Pat was there at the start of this one. It's our it's our up-county regional planning initiative that brings together community development and cultural and heritage tourism. And that plan has leveraged millions of dollars in state funding over the past 20 years. Wayne thinks it'd be the appropriate time to update that plan with some more actionable items and hopefully keep us positioned to continue to receive a lot of state funding.
Thank you. Any questions, Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, thank you. At the beginning here, we had to close the capital project H3 for the first Wilderness 2012. And it's a project name for the first Wilderness Action Plan update. They kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, so ever since about the year 2000, even right before then, we've been working on the first Wilderness Heritage Corridor as an initiative. We're closing out grants now. All these streetscape and other improvements, all the improvements at Dean Farm. A lot of these grants are just closing up, and now it's time to sort of reload. Yeah, that was one of the historic legacy projects.
So we just put 71,000 and change back into the general fund. And then now we're looking to approximately another 100,000 to put back into the plan.
So that's
Is that, I mean, I'm just trying to
So-
understand this.
so- First Wilderness Heritage Corridor is a planning initiative, which we have used. It's basically a plan for the local waterfront revitalization program funding source through the state. So we have had multiple grants through the years that center around this plan. Many of them, all of them are 5-year awards. Many of them we have closed out over the past few years. We've completed the projects. We've done what we said we were going to do, expended all of the grant funds. We have the $71,000 left over from those completed grant programs. Now, as Ethan said, it's time to reload. We're going to revisit the plan, update the action items. The last time that was done was in 2014. So it's time to just visit with all the communities, find out what their current priorities are, use that plan to apply for additional grant funding going forward for our next set of projects.
Sounds good.
Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you. Was one left off here, the River Park improvements?
Yeah, sorry, that was a project that Wayne and Supervisor Hogan had been working on last year. They submitted an application, was not successful. The granting agency gave some pointers on what could be done to improve it, and hopefully by resubmitting this application, I'll have the town of Johnsburg this will get another nice Riverside Park funded. So
Good. Sarah, we talked before, the last one on the list, the Historians Challenge launch is going to move over to the, it's going to be discussed at occupancy
Yes.
tax also.
Yep. So if anybody's interested in hearing about that, stick around for OCTAX.
Good. So basically we're done, but maybe our administrator would like to help bring up one more issue or a more discussion point.
The chair talked to me last week about the possibility of coming back to committee regarding the assistant county planner 2 position that did not pass the board meeting last week. If you would like to advance that from this committee to personnel, you can do so. The starting pay for that position was proposed to be $63,711. It is a non-union position, grade 14, so we would have discretion to go higher in order to bring somebody in if we had to. The top of that grade is $83,150, starts again at $63,711. Wayne did some research on comparables. I'll read those quickly to you. These are planners in other jurisdictions in this state. The city of Glenville their range is mid-70s to low 80s. Niagara County, 51,870 to 60,624. Buffalo goes from 56,000 up to 65,000. Genesee, 50,000 to 65,000. Chemung, 60,632. Chautauqua, 62,358. Finger Lakes, 65,000. Green County, 55,702. Wyndham Regional Council, 65,000, and the city of Plattsburgh, 60,000 to 80,000. Wayne's preference, again, which he stated at the previous meeting, would be to retain the senior planner position, to continue to have both of them posted. The salary on that senior planner is $50,384. But that being said, if the board feels that we should delete that senior planner and have the assistant planner instead, that's something he can live with.
So I think we need a motion to discuss this, to move it to.
Yes.
And would anyone like to make the motion? Supervisor McGowan, Supervisor Leggett? Any questions, discussions? I do appreciate the support we've gotten.
I'm unclear what the motion is.
To remove, to not remove, but to refer the current opening that we have over to personnel or finance? Personnel.
Personnel first.
Personnel.
And could you reiterate the salary that we're offering with the assistant county?
The range for the assistant county planner two, it would start at 63,711 and it tops out at 83,150.
So do we have a motion? We did that already? Okay. Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wednesday night, we went into a great discussion on this, and I think really the problem is retaining the 50 and adding the 63. And I think that's where I think the battle came in and why it did not pass. And we didn't really get anything at the 50,000, and so we want to put on the $63,000 salary. But nobody was willing to take that 50,000 off, so. And I believe we hackled back and forth, and that was the reason it wasn't passed, so. I don't have a problem removing the 50 and going with the senior planner for the 63. But I do have a problem keeping the other one on and adding another one.
We do know that the current director of planning, Wayne, is scheduled to retire early 2023. So are you saying that we should probably wait till later to make sure that we have the staffing where we need it to be?
Well, I'm just speaking from what I've gathered at the meeting of why,
Understand.
so yeah, so.
So is that a second motion or something that we modify into the first one?
We're discussing the first motion.
Discussing the first?
Yeah, we're discussing.
Supervisor Hogan.
I believe I said it the other night. And I will point out that we have just sat here for 3 hours hearing about the need for addressing our housing crisis in order to address our workforce crisis. And the department that's going to do it for us is planning. They're putting proposals in front of us to address it. There is nothing more important to our continued growth and economic health. And if they need one person, we should say yes. If they need two, we should say yes. Putting out both of these, I don't even know if the plan is to put both of them out, but putting out both of them casts a wider net, and we can bring the discussion back later. If we get 2 applicants, good on us. If we only get one, we'll address the one that we got and the qualifications that that person has.
Supervisor McGowan. Then Supervisor
I
Leggett.
believe that was what it was, is whatever, which one we get, we delete the other, so. I don't have a problem moving forward. Like I said, I know of Wayne's retirement coming up. I know the planning department is quite busy, so I don't have a problem. I just don't want to bring it back to the board meeting and we, discuss it for another hour and a half. Of what we should do, but I don't have a problem as long as we have the wording in there. We either get either one or the other or both, but if we only get one, we delete the other one.
So
I
you'll
think
vote
pleasure of the
so you'll
committee.
vote for it today and then we'll talk about it later.
Oh, yeah, that seems like a lot of things that we do.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. Right now, is there the request to fill the senior position? Is that still valid and still out there?
And no response.
And we have a need, a growing need, as Supervisor Hogan had put out there. That, and also for clarification, in the 2022 budget, the senior planning position is funded at 50,000, and there's an assistant planner that's not funded, correct?
No, the assistant planner is funded and occupied. The assistant planner number 1. This would be
okay.
assistant planner 2.
But I had seen one with zeros.
That was back in the 2021 budget.
Thank you. I'm confused.
Yes, you still have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So from your committee here, we are responsible for the planning department and making
Yes.
sure that it operates efficiently. So the recommendation coming out of planning, it should carry some weight, I would think. And with this committee assessing the needs of the planning department, are both positions needed? Should we keep them both open?
Both positions, in my opinion, speaking with the team, are definitely needed. The current status of the level of staffing that we have today does not allow that team to do all the work that has to be done. ARPA has basically consumed 20% of Wayne's time and 20% of Ethan's time. It's a significant amount. Now, ARPA has provided some funding to help with that load. But there's two things associated with one, that position won't be filled until the 5th of July, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. And secondly, that person is going to have to come up to speed. The other issue to be concerned about, that I'm very concerned about, is that the consolidated CFA grant applications are due the 29th of July. There's significant amount of work that has to be done to complete those applications. And Wayne is the only one that's really capable of just following the whole process through. So what I'm seeing is that Wayne's 20% to ARPA can't necessarily be allocated until after the 29th of July. If trying to do any more, and we heard from our union, the last board meeting, and how stressed the team are. I talked to this team Thursday morning. They're stressed. They're dedicated. They know that they want to do a good job, and they will continue to do a good job. And they don't want me to say anything about reducing the support we give to different areas. But the reality is we don't have enough staff. So it's whatever the privilege of the committee is. But if we need to have the committee spend some time at the planning department and talk about all the different things, we can do that. I know we've been at this for a long time this morning. And I am over time period. Nothing new for me. But we do need, the planning department needs help. So what's the privilege of the committee?
We have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion, which is to bring this position and retain the other. Is that the privilege?
There's
Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah,
Just
Wayne did mention that he'd delete the other one if
necessary.
necessary. So really, I'd like to get this position out there and see if, because I know the planning, and after finding out more today with Jim and Liza, what we have to, what's coming down to the workforce and everything else, I think we need to keep this moving and see if we can find planning some more help.
Would it be helpful if we had Wayne come back to us before an offer was made to let us know which one he's hiring and whether there's a second candidate and whether that need for that second candidate still exists?
That would
I'm
be-
sure it will, but would that
be,
help?
okay with me, yeah?
You think that would help us pass this going forward?
Yes.
Looking for an idea to get it done. So do we need to modify a resolution for that? Or the referral?
That,
Pardon me?
I'm not willing to modify the resolution.
You're not willing to modify. Okay. So with that, we're going to call a vote for the original.
Did you want this to go before the June 30th board meeting? Is that what you were hoping for?
June 30th personnel. Yes.
Or the July 15th?
I would prefer June 30th.
Board
Is that the board meeting? Is that the privilege of the committee? June 30th? Okay. I know I should keep my own personal opinions out, but it's hard for me to do that. So you can correct me if you will.
You need to call the question.
I will call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I believe that's all we have on the agenda. Mr. Lehman, is he on board? Do we have any questions, comments from the public?
Thank you, Brad.
Privilege of the floor.
Hi,
Gina, would you
Chairman
Go to the,
Wild.
sorry,
Yeah.
Don, just a
Nothing on.
moment. Gina's on.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the committee moving forward, as there's been talk about a merger with Greater Glens Falls Transit as well as with CDTA. And Greater Glens Falls Transit, specifically with the trolley for the shoulder seasons, we really need additional, obviously they need drivers and everything else, but that merger would be very helpful to our entire tourism economy. And like, so what we'll see starting now this Saturday when they go into full mode, it will move not only visitors, but also employees. When I say it'll move visitors, it moves visitors from hotel properties, from campgrounds throughout the village and into up to Bolton and back, as well as employees. And what we're missing out on is the shoulder seasons. So we, some of it was curtailed due to drivers. We did bring this to their attention last fall to do whatever could be possible for the shoulder seasons after last fall's shoulder season. And there was some times that were curtailed again because of operational issues. So I just bring this to your attention just as another form of economic growth and development, that transportation, we've talked about it in addition to childcare and housing. This is another form of that helps us all. So just to bring that to your attention, and in any way, the business community, we have many business partners that are sponsoring Greater Glens Falls Transit and their efforts to actually supply that transportation for employees as much as it does for visitors. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Gina.
Comment.
Yes.
The city supervisors have met with all of the principals involved, and the city supervisors are full agreement with exactly what you've just said. So we fully support the merger, the proposal.
Great, thanks.
Any other privilege of the floor? Mr. Lehman, any comments?
Hi, Chairman Wild. No, nothing on YouTube.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?